Good morning, Katie. Or actually afternoon. It's afternoon for you guys. We're just getting started. So you're the first one here. So we'll give it a couple minutes to get everyone here or anyone that wants. And then we'll just end up getting started. Hope you're having a good Easter. Bryce and Willow are floating around. Today Willow did her first egg hunt. It was pretty much just eggs thrown in the yard, and then she... Oh, you guys are waiting for me. Oh, before you eat your Easter dinner. Well, then I won't make you wait too long. We'll just give it another minute. Oh, we have someone who's joined. Oh, wait, who's that one? That one? Okay. Welcome. I don't think I've seen you join us before, but we are reading a chapter every other day of Dolly, My Life, and Other Unfinished Business. Oh, I think Miss Danielle's left us already, but that's okay. I did find, just like while we're waiting, I found a couple more pictures of Dolly at a younger age. This one is when she was in school. This is school age. And then that was her at the age of 3. Her caption says, already posing for the camera. Oh, and this is, if you remember from a few chapters ago, when she had that one sibling who passed away. Oh, we're reading for Rod's book Yesterday Shop, we are reading the 90's Dolly Biography. We're in chapter 8. Today, I'm just kind of going over a few pictures that are in the book. A few chapters ago, we learned that Dolly Parton had a sibling that passed away at infancy. This is a picture of the whole family together burying that person. It was a child named Larry. Yeah, and then I have to save the rest of the pictures for the moment we get there. Oh wait, here's a pig from their farm. Dolly says the one in the middle, the blonde one, was her. Normally I wear a wig, but I decided to box bottle blonde my hair, so I look like I have a wig on now. So we aren't going to worry about the wigs today. But we're going to just go ahead and get started. So we are in chapter 8. Oh, there's little lady out back. To do a quick recap, we learned from chapter 7 that Dolly Parton started her music career through a local radio channel. Then she cut her first record through a cousin who had access to a recording studio. Her and her grandma got lost taking a giant bus, sort of like a Greyhound, to Louisiana. And yeah, so here we are. So she started her music career. We're going to keep going. So here we are for chapter 8 of Dolly, My Life, and Other Unfinished Business on this Easter Sunday. My little record. So we ended last chapter with her cutting that record, her first record. So my little record got some play on the radio. I kept on singing on the Cass Walker show. Cass Walker was the name of the gentleman who had the local radio show. Sorry, I'm moving my coffee cup so I don't spill it like last time. Cass Walker, he kind of started off with like as a grocery store maker, and then he started making some big time money and had a radio show. So she came up to him and said, I want a job or something like that. So he gave her first job, and that's how she got her start in the radio. Very young age. So here we go, back to this. My little record got some play on the radio, and I kept on singing on the Cass Walker show. During summer vacations and any other time I was out of school for a few days, I would go to Knoxville to live with my Aunt Estelle and Uncle Dot Watson. Yes, the same guy who got us to plant horse turds. A few chapters ago, Dolly Parton talked about her and her siblings wanted ponies, and her uncle convinced them that if they planted pony seeds, aka horse turds, they would grow. And they just had water. It was a good way to keep the kids entertained. So if anyone has access to horses right now and you're locked down or in quarantine, teach your kids about horse turds or pony seeds. They might be able to grow them. Okay, back to this. Oh, hold on. We have a situation with the baby. The cat took Sophie. But we're back. Okay. There's Sophie. Okay, this way I could. So they went. I would live with Aunt Estelle and Uncle Dot Watson. Sorry for the delays, guys. Getting this started. This way I could do both the TV and the radio shows. I would take the bus from Estelle's house and get off that bridge they call the viaduct near the JFG coffee plant. I can remember the wonderful smell.
She's got so many. Don't you even worry about it. Don't you go buy anything.
No, I can remember the wonderful smell that would come wafting through the doors when the boss would let me go, or when the bus would let me out. I probably love coffee so much today because of that. The bus got me to the theater quite a while before I had to get to be there. There I was, just my guitar and me. Here's Willow.
Happy Easter.
She would like a little bit of milk.
Well, I'll be right back, young lady.
Maybe you take her with you?
Yeah, let's see.
You want to go with Papa? Oh, no, leave her here. Okay. Okay,
Just
we're starting off slow. I apologize, you guys, for this day. Okay, so she would take a bus to go stay with her Aunt Estelle and Uncle Dot Watson. She loves coffee because the coffee plant was where she would get out of the bus. Going back to it. The bus got me to the theater quite a while before I had to be there. There I was, just my guitar and me. It was the second of these that got me into trouble. The guitar was just an innocent accomplice. Actually, I started out quite innocently as well, but temptation got the better of me. It wasn't long before I had the guitar out and was playing and singing. I was just playing for myself, but after a while, a few people started to gather around. This one couple, who looked like they were from out of town, stopped and heard one whole song and part of another. The lady smiled and chirped. "You sing real pretty, honey." "Thanks," I said. "Well, you can read along. You can read along." Hold on. This is her new thing, throwing tantrums. You see that shape? That's her throwing a tantrum to read the book about Dolly Parton. Okay. The chirpy woman was now.
Here you go. Put this in your hand.
Maybe you grab her.
You take
Sorry,
that.
guys. Willow's out of here. She ain't making it today.
Look at that cute little foot.
Get her out of here. Get her out of here. Get the baby. Here's your milk.
I got the baby.
Okay. "You sing real pretty, honey." "Thanks," I said without missing a strum. "Isn't she good, Hubert?" The woman went on, this time giving her husband a poke in the ribs with her elbow. The man just kind of nodded and grunted. The chirpy woman was now through with subtle hints. "Well, aren't you going to give this child a quarter?" she asked the man, giving him a much harder poke in the side. The man must have been used to this, because he obediently took out a quarter and dropped it into my guitar case like a shelter, or like a setter trained to drop a quail at a hunter's feet. For a second I thought to myself, Daddy wouldn't want me begging. Then a couple other suckers dropped coins in the case, and I thought, Daddy's back home and I want a Jiffy Burger. Jiffy Burgers were wonderfully greasy little sliders from a place near Aunt Estelle's house. I wanted them more than anything. To me, they represented everything the mountain life wasn't. The problem was I only made $20 a week. I had gotten a raise and gave Aunt Estelle half of that for my board. And I had already been caught taking Aunt Estelle's laundry money to buy those burgers. So, if old purple-haired ladies wanted to fork out the cash, it was all right by me. At first, I was uncomfortable with the idea that the people who were giving me money thought I was needy. As the coins kept dropping, however, I found myself taking steps to enhance my waif image. I would carry an old ragged shirt inside my guitar case to put out for effect. I have to admit, I would look plumb pitiful. Years later, I wrote a song with my brother Floyd called Nickels and Dimes that was based on that experience. Soon, Uncle Bill decided I should go to Nashville. After all, that's where the real business was, and he had high hopes for me. He would buy some kind of an old junked-up car, and off we'd go. The car would probably only hold up for 1 or 2 trips to Nashville and back, but that's all we wanted. We didn't even care that much if it got us back, as long as we got there. It was all we could do to get gas money together. So we had to sleep in the car and wash up in the cold water in the gas station restrooms. We are reading Dolly, My Life and Other Unfinished Business, Chapter 8. Our main objective was to get me on the Grand Ole Opry. We would go there and get as close as we could to the action. Uncle Bill was never shy about talking to people about me. After a while, he got to know some of them pretty well. One event that will forever be etched in my memory is meeting Johnny Cash. One night after a show at the Ryman, Bill and I waited for him in the parking lot. It was late, and I was getting sleepy. I kept saying to Bill, "Come on, we can meet him some other time." Then a man stepped out in the stage door and walked over to us, and there was no other time. There was only this moment. There was only me and Johnny Cash. I had never seen a man with such a presence, tall, lanky, and sexy, with that trademark voice that cut through me like butter. Now I knew what star quality was. He had it. It was a combination of personal charisma and intense sex appeal. The way he walked, the way he looked at you, everything about him was special. I was blown away. I was just a 13-year-old girl from the Smokies. But I would have gladly given it up for Mr. Cash right there in the parking lot. Bill introduced me to him, and I didn't know if I would be able to speak. Somehow, something took hold of me, and I found myself blurting out, "Oh, Mr. Cash, I've just got to sing on the Grand Ole Opry." I know he must have heard that kind of thing all the time. Anybody in show business does. But he looked at me as if he was thinking, this kid is really serious. I was serious. I had to know Carl and Pearl Butler from I had come to know Carl and Pearl Butler from having performed with them on the Cass Walker Show. They were a couple from Knoxville who had moved to Nashville to further their careers. They had done quite well and had some hit records. "Don't Let Me Cross Over" was their biggest hit and was named Song of the Year in country music. They were like second parents to Uncle Billy and me. Pearl was especially sweet to me. She would buy me a new dress every now and then, and of course I liked that a lot. They put together a band to play road dates and gave Bill a job playing guitar. They were lifesavers in those days. Chapter 8, Dolly, My Life and Other Unfinished Business. Carl and Pearl had come to know a lot of people in country music. Since I knew them, I was convinced they could help me. That's the way being a show business squirrel works. If you don't know somebody, you try to know somebody who knows somebody. There's that one tree with all the nuts at the top, and you just got to keep trying to jump one limb closer. That's show business. All right. All the nuts are at the top. I kept bugging Carl and Pearl. "I want to be on the Opry. I want to be on the Opry." I guess they thought my chances were pretty slim and wanted to spare me a heartache, so they'd come up with the answers like, "You're just a kid," or "You have to be in the union," or just about anything they could think of, but I just wouldn't be denied. Oh, on a side note, I learned a little fact a few years ago that the Grand Ole Opry was predominantly performed on by white musicians. The first musicians to perform on the Grand Ole Opry was the Pointer Sisters. And I want to say that they sang a song by Bonnie Raitt. I don't remember, but the Pointer Sisters were the first non-white performers at the Grand Ole Opry. Okay, back to the book. You had to have a slot on the program to sing on the Opry, and there was no way I was going to get one. But finally, Jimmy C. Newman, who had a spot one Saturday night, agreed to let me go on in his place. I will always be grateful to him for that chance. He was a dark, handsome Cajun from the same area as Ed Shulin and his son Johnny. I was still carrying a torch for Johnny, and in my romantic mind I thought surely my sweet dark-eyed lover boy had somehow sent this nice man to help me out, even if only in the spiritual sense. Even though I got my wish to actually sing on the Opry, the reality of it hadn't really sunk in. I took my place backstage that night, my usual cocky self, acting as if I sang on the Opry all night. When my time came to sing, none other than Johnny Cash introduced me. "We got a little girl here." Remember, I don't do voices. "We've got a little girl here from up in East Tennessee." I don't know if that's how he sounded. He said, "Her daddy's listening to the radio at home, and she's going to be in real trouble if she doesn't sing tonight, so let's bring her out here." Now, the reality hit me. I had that same feeling I had felt the first time on the Cass Walker show, but this time the audience was 10 times as big. Not only the live audience. I knew very well that the Radio Cat broadcast was going out live all over the country. I was in the big time. If it hadn't been for that earlier experience, I don't know if I would have ever been able to make that sound come out of my throat. So I walked up to the mic with my familiar WSM call letters on the little box built around it. This is actually it, I thought. For a split second, I was a tourist as I pondered the mic. The same one I had seen in so many press photos of the stars I looked up to. I was standing on that same stage in the same place they had stood, where 5 seconds ago Johnny Cash had stood welcoming me to the stage. Me, little Dolly Rebecca Parton from Locust Ridge. Someone in the audience took a flash picture, and it snapped me out of being a tourist. I wasn't sure I could sing at all, but God had brought me this far and had put something in me that would not be held back. As I heard the band play my introduction, I lifted my head, looked up toward the lights. I smiled at the people in the balcony and then let her rip. I sang the way I had that day in the old chapel. I sang for God and Mama and Daddy. I sang for Sawdust and Aunt Martha. I sang for everybody who ever believed in me. Somehow I believed in me. I guess it showed in my voice. I was stunned by the way the crowd reacted. I don't think I had ever seen 2,000 people in one place before. I know I had never heard a crowd cheer and shout and clap that way. And they were doing it all for me. I got 3 encores. This time I was prepared for an encore, but not 3. Not at the Grand Ole Opry. Someone told me later, you look like you were out there saying, here I am, this is me. I was. Not just to that audience, but to the whole world. That performance did a lot for my confidence. I remember walking to Uncle Bill's old car that night after the show, still flying treetop high. I said, well, Uncle Bill, I'm pretty good, ain't I? He laughed and said, yes, I guess you are. I was to see a lot of that old car in the next couple of years. I count the nights Bill and I slept in that old crate in the parking lot of some club or in the street or in front of some record company or promoter's office. It was an old brown Ford that had been hit on the passenger side. The fender on the other side didn't match the rest of the car. I guess it had been wrecked on that side too and then repaired, or after a fashion. The door on my side had been wired shut with a coat hanger, so Bill would have to open the door on his side and I'd slide across. I'll bet a lot of people saw that, thought he was being a gentleman. In truth, Bill's manners were more suited to that car than they would have been to a new Cadillac. If you're just joining us, Esther's Shop, we have you joining us. We just learned about Dolly Parton playing the Grand Ole Opry for the first time in Chapter 8 of Dolly, My Life and Other Unfinished Business. And Happy Jess, welcome. Okay, continuing. Bill would sleep in the front seat and I would sleep in the back. Once we finally got to sleep, that is. Many nights we would sit up writing songs or working on arrangements, or just dreaming about all the big times to come until almost daylight. Let me give you a wave back. There you go. Give you a wave back too. Okay. There's a healthy amount of dreaming that has to be done for any project to really be worthwhile. All those doors have to be knocked on. Some have to be slammed in your face. All of those tapes have to be sent in. Many will end up in the trash without ever having been heard. It's all part of the process. To an outsider, the quest for stardom might seem too frustrating, too heartbreaking. The whole system might seem cruel. Front office people might seem put there simply to keep you from getting anywhere. The fact is, they are. Trying to weed out those people with talent from all that area of dreamers is quite a job. It's a lot like looking for 4-leaf clovers, which would be easy if it weren't for all those damn 3-leaf ones. The problem is, every one of those 3-leaf clovers thinks he's a 4-leafer. He has to in order to keep going and pushing. Always on the move, so you can't count his leaves. I apologize. My neighbor is weed whacking. It's a very unique experience. If you can't hear me, let me know and I'll talk louder. It's the front office person's job to keep me out, and it's my job to keep on trying. That's the system, and there's nothing we can do about it. Talent is a subjective thing. Can you hear me? Just wanted to make sure everyone can hear me still. A yes, a wave. I'm just going to keep going like you can hear me. Okay. Okay. That is especially true when it comes to songwriting. It's usually pretty obvious. Oh, thank you very much. You can hear me. Good. It's usually pretty obvious if you can sing or not, but everybody thinks he's a songwriter. You can't go through a drive-thru window at a fast food stand in Nashville without getting a cassette tape of somebody's would-be hit along with your french fries. The story goes that Johnny Cash was in church one Sunday at a big service in Nashville, and he was called upon to go to the altar and pray. He went up the aisle and got down on his knees and was about to begin praying when he became aware of someone kneeling next to him. Before Johnny could start his praying, the man slipped the tape into his pocket and whispered reverently, "I've got a song for you." I have no doubt that story is true. Also, I have no doubt that if it had been at that service, that man could well have been my Uncle Bill. Whatever Uncle Bill was or wasn't, there was no doubt he believed in me. Or at least that it wasn't something he could be... Wait. Oh my God, I'm missing my space. I feel like sometimes reading Dolly Parton, My Life and Other Unfinished Business, I get jumbled up on the words because I'm trying to imagine her at the same time going through these experiences. Okay, blah, 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 blah. Give a couple people some waves while I find my space. Okay, he would knock on doors wearing her Uncle Bill. He was always on the case. He would knock on doors wearing his best smile and sell me as if I were a vacuum cleaner. He would approach people with sparkly boots getting out of Cadillacs and talk me up in every possible way. His favorite way was to hang out at Tootsie's Orchid Lounge. This was and is a somewhat seedy little dive across an old alley from the back door of the old Ryman Auditorium, where the Grand Ole Opry was held at that time. Many of the performers, promoters, songwriters, and publishers would hang out there between or after the shows. It was a fertile field for a squirrel like Uncle Bill to dig for acorns in. On a side note, once this is all done, we all got to go support our local dive bars. If you're in Hermosa, you've got Ercles over Manhattan Beach, El Segundo, you have the Wild Orchid, and here on Kauai we have, oh God, it's right next to our store, Big Wave Days. We should support our dive bars once this whole thing is done. Okay, going back to the book. I just thought about that. Sundays, cocktails, it's Easter, we should be drinking, yay! Okay, here we go. He would con and connive and finagle his way into an auditorium if he could. If nothing else, he would usually convince his mark to take a tape of our songs. Of course, this portion of his work included having a few drinks with whoever he was chatting up our songs to. Hi, Andy. Give you a wave, okay? This was a job he relished, maybe a little too much. Most nights he would work himself right onto the floor. Then he would fall back into the car in the flophouse room, if we could afford one that night, to sleep it off and begin all over the next day. We would drive around town in that old car without much of a plan of what to do. But you could bet night wouldn't fall without our trying to create some opportunity to be heard. Again, I apologize for the weed whacking going on in the background. We have a neighbor who is weed whacking, and it is always an experience. It is always an experience. Bryce can attest to that. He just stepped out and gave me the look. Oh, side note, where's our child?
Oh, she's fine.
She's fine. She's fine. She's watching Peter Rabbit or something. Okay. We would drive around town in that old car without much of a plan of what to do. But you could bet night wouldn't fall without our trying to create some opportunity to be heard. It seemed like during this driving, the dreaming part of our job was shifted into high gear. We would make up songs or parts of songs and sing them, and that was Bryce stumbling on some things. Okay. We would make up songs or parts of songs and sing them at the top of our lungs. It was hard to play guitar while the car was moving, so I would usually just beat on the dashboard. Those old cars were built really well, but that dashboard finally began to buckle after 50 or so songs. As writers, we were on the same wavelength. We wrote a lot of great songs together, and we still do. We had the same kind of energy when it came to our careers. Neither of us ever gave out as long as something was happening, or at least had the look of something that might happen. Nothing mattered to Billy except his work. I knew exactly where he was coming from. That is why I understood when he stepped in front of a bus in Knoxville. His plan was to get injured just enough to get an insurance settlement. Hopefully, cash out of court to get gas money to go to Nashville. He wanted to be able to buy some lights, a microphone, and a sound system so that we could play somewhere. I was just hoping he wouldn't wind up playing in the Angel Band. But I understood why he did it. I'm enough like my daddy that I did not always agree with Uncle Billy's methods, but I certainly identified with the drive that made him do that kind of thing. I would sometimes cringe when he would take his wife's hard-earned waitress money and buy a tank of gas for a show or a trip. But because I shared the dream, I said nothing. We are in Chapter 8 of Dolly, My Life and Other Unfinished Business. Her career is really starting to flourish a little bit in this chapter. Bill had many wives, as dreamers often do. I'd like to publicly thank all of them for their contributions to my career. I know they put up with a lot from Bill and me, and I appreciate them for it, especially Chris. The wives came and went, but the quest for stardom went on. On one particular day, our objective was to get in to see Buddy Kylan at Tree Publishing. Kylan, something like that. I believe Bill had met him somewhere, and Mr. Kylan, as people will do, said something like, "Stop by my office sometime." Never expecting the invitation to be taken seriously. He obviously didn't know Uncle Bill. We walked into the outer office with our guitars in tow and proudly announced ourselves. We thought we gave off an air of serious music professionals. Looking back, I'm sure everybody in that office could recognize us as a pair of backwoods door knockers with more brass than credentials. Even if we had known that at the time, it still would not have stopped us or even slowed us down. We were told Mr. Killen was in the meeting, and I'm sure he was. We waited. Mr. Killen was on the phone. We waited. Mr. Killen had to go out to other meetings. That meant he had to walk right by us. He did. There were strained smiles in response to Bill's advances. There were sideways, can you get rid of them? Looks at the secretary. We waited. Country people claim that if a snapping turtle gets a hold of your toe, he won't let go until it thunders. Well, it wasn't about to thunder in that office, and Bill was the stubbornest snapping turtle a music executive could ever hope to run across. Finally, at 6 o'clock, Mr. Killen came back to his office to tie up a few loose ends and found our loose ends still tying up the better part of his sofa. He gave in and said with a sigh, "Y'all come in." When we first walked into the outer office, I had been a little nervous, but by now I felt like a caged animal that had been set free. I flapped open the lid of my cardboard guitar case and whipped out my old Martin. Mr. Killen seemed a little taken back. I think he wasn't sure whether I was going to be playing the guitar or braining with it. He breathed a sigh of relief when I went into a song. Bill hustled his guitar out as fast as he could and joined in. I sang loud and strong with the secretary. That comes with knowing. Oh, not with the secretary, the security. Okay, let's go back and read that again. Bill hustled his guitar out as fast as he could and joined in. I sang loud and strong with the security that comes with knowing that one way or another, it'll be over soon. By this time, Bill and I had written several songs that we thought had potential. To our amazement, so did Buddy Kylan. I think he admired our guts as much as anything. What really thrilled me was that he liked my voice. He even thought I had a chance of becoming a recording artist. Of course, that was sheet music to my ears. Bill and I signed a deal with Tree Publishing as songwriters. This was great, but there was something else that absolutely made my spirit soar. I was to have a demo recording session for Mercury Records. That usually meant a 3-hour session that would produce 4 songs. Bill and I had to make 2 or 3 more trips to Nashville before the records would actually be cut. Now it seems like our old car had wings. Maybe it wasn't the car at all. I believed I could have flown from Seaverville to Nashville on my own. One person who was very helpful to us during our time at Tree was Cherry Crutchfield. His name might well have been Crushfield because I had one big one on him. He had a very distinctive voice and a way of carrying himself that really blew my skirt up. I had visions of the two of us between the sheet music. Oh God, Dolly, she really does go for it. I don't know if he ever knew how I felt. I was such a moony-eyed kid. I don't see now how he or anyone else could have missed him. Jerry went on to become one of the biggest recording producers in Nashville, and I still think of him as a very special person. Oh, my mother just joined. Hi, Mom. Oh, and Justin. Hi. Oh, and Fionn. She loves my hair. Thank you so much, Fionn. Trying something new. How do you like the ears that I grew for Easter? I might have to put them away. Tuck them and hide them for the rest of the year. Okay. Somehow, in between girlish sighs over Jerry Crutchfield, I made the records. The A-side was a song that Uncle Bill and I had written called "It May Not Kill Me, But It's Sure Gonna Hurt." On the other side, there was a song that I had written with Uncle Bill and Uncle John Henry. The title of it was "I Wasted My Tears When I Cried Over You." Both of the songs got airplay on the local station back in Seaverville, as did all the homemade records I made all before. I will never forget hearing "It May Not Kill Me" on a Knoxville station. WIVK. WIVK. There. I was actually hearing myself sing, not on a tape or studio monitor, but on a real radio station that thousands of people were listening to at that very moment. I was so proud I walked around for days with my chest all stuck out. Somehow, nobody noticed. We are in Chapter 8 of Dolly, My Life, and Other Unfinished Business, written in the 90s, her biography. Hey, Billy Love. Okay. That feeling didn't last, and neither did our association with Mercury and Tree. The realities of the music business begin to reveal themselves to me. It is one thing to have a record company take a chance on an unknown and finance a record. It is quite another to get a radio station to play it. The overall response to my record had given the label little reason to pursue future recordings with me. We had all tried our best, but there's just no way to guess what the public is going to go for at any given time. I will always be grateful to Buddy Kylan for the faith he had in me. I hope that the success I've had since that time has at least given him the satisfaction of knowing he was right. While it takes more than that to discourage an Owens dreamer with a Parton will, it seemed the best thing for me to do was to go back home to the hills and finish high school. This was not a thought I relished. I never liked school. I was the first one in my family to ever finish high school, and I am proud of it. I am proud of it and that I did it. But I had known so early what I wanted to do with my life that I couldn't see the importance of learning geography or plain geometry. I was not well liked in school either. In fact, I was actively disliked by many, especially the other girls. I liked to dress flashy, and I had earned a reputation for being a tramp. That reputation was fostered largely by girls who appeared to be goody-goodies all week but on Friday nights were something altogether else. Our neighbor's weed-whacking again. Bear with us. When they made a car rock, it wasn't from beating out songs on the dashboard. Of course, the rumors of my horror made me very popular with the boys, which tended to make me even less popular with the girls. The irony was that the other girls' mothers all thought I was a bad influence on them. I guess I have to admit that the way I usually looked would have made just about anybody think that. I became aware of my body at a very early age. By the time I was 12, I had sprouted what some of the boys called headlights. I was 5'2" when I was 12, and I have never grown another fraction since. He weed whacks all the time with an electric weed whacker. It just cracks us up. You would think he'd get a mower. But I'm not one to judge. We can all cut our grass any way we want. I'm going to go back to the book. After that... Oh, wait. She grew some headlights. I was 5'2" when I was 12, and I have never grown another fraction since. I wanted to go look sexy from the time I was about 10. But it didn't go into overdrive until about 13. After that, nobody could stop me. I was about 10, but it didn't go into overdrive until I was 13. After that, nobody could stop me. Not Mama, nor Daddy, or Grandpa Jake. Nobody. I saved what money I could keep from the Cass Walker Show. Oh, thanks, Sheila. You're so sweet. I saved what money I could from the Cass Walker Show to buy peroxide, makeup, and sexy clothes. I couldn't get my hair big enough or yaller enough. Couldn't get my skirt tight enough, my blouses low enough. Couldn't get my boobs to stand up high enough or squeeze them together close enough. Of course, I had to get away from home and really put on the dog. I'd go into a 4 for a quarter picture booth at Woolworths, unbutton my blouse, push my headlights up with my arms, and take pictures. On the next quarter, I'd pull my blouse down off my shoulders and practice my sexy look. Let's see if she has any in her book of the sexy look. Let's see. No. But I do got a picture of Dolly Parton as a senior. Look at that. That's Baby Willow and Bryce on top. Look, Dolly Parton as a senior. That was one of her first publicity shots. She probably would have used that, I don't know, when she was at Mercury Records filming that. Oh God, I totally lost my space.
I thought you were finished reading.
No.
Who's on board?
A lot of people. Don't ask questions. Okay, here we are. Believe it or not, I thought I needed falsies. To simulate those, I would sneak into the closet and cut the shoulder pads out of a woman's coat.
Uh-oh.
Grandma or somebody's. I'd do that in the middle of the summer when I knew they wouldn't be missed for a long time. When I discovered, oh God. When I discovered that there was actually a thing called push-up bra, that to me had to be equal of the day. Einstein figured out what this relativity thing was. After all, it's all relative. And now my relatives would have to go around in the winter with slumpy-looking shoulders. On a funny note, the first time I ever met Bryce's mom, she had these little pads sitting on the coffee table. She made a comment about, oh, those are my butt pads. And we were like, what? Well, come to find out that Bryce's mom would take and make these little pads, like you would put little cutlets in your bra to give you a bigger chest, but she would put them in her pants to make her look like she had a bigger butt. Because, as she says, she took no acetol pills. Back to the Dolly Parton story. Oh, hi! We are reading Dolly Parton, Chapter 8 of My Life and Other Unfinished Business from the 90's Biography. We are just learning about how she would dress sexy at the age of 13. Okay, here we go. Okay, we're almost done with this chapter for those of you that are holding off your Easter dinners. We've got like 3 more pages. We'll get through this. Here we go. I tried to make the best of school. I think what helped me to get through it all was my friendship with Judy Ogle. We had met years earlier when we were in the 3rd grade. Oh, I love you too. Bye. Happy Easter. My family had just moved from Locust Ridge to Catton's Chapel, and I was going through the typical new kid shyness. Judy, I found somebody shocked than me. She was an absolutely withdrawn little girl with ragged clothes, chapped lips, and skinned knees, with a piece of rubber band taken from an old pair of underwire, what we used to call bloomer rubber, in her hair. I suppose most people wouldn't have noticed her, but I was drawn to her because of her big, green, cat-curious eyes. I was also fascinated by her hair, the color of a new copper penny. We had some red-headed relatives, but their hair was closer to auburn. Judy's hair was orange. I must have seemed just as strange on my own way to her. We were both fish out of water. Unlike her, my greatest defense against shyness was to be outgoing. I am very glad that I was outgoing enough to get to know Judy. It wasn't the beginning of friendship that had lasted a lifetime. Everybody knew her father, Mayford, was a moonshiner who sampled his own wares and could be pretty nasty to live with when he had done a little too much tasting. Judy's mother was the complete opposite. Blanche, or Granny Ogle, as everybody calls her, is the dearest, sweetest woman who could ever hope to meet. She was always hauling other people's kids around, thankfully me included. to this dance or to that practice or whatever else a good mother needed to be about. Every year she would play Santa Claus. She's a skinny little woman and looked more like a praying mantis in a praying mantis in a red sock than like a Santa Claus. That's a very funny visual. We got a kick out of it and loved her for it just the same. Anybody can be Santa Claus if the desire and the love are there. Ah, that's a good message. Judy had to work the fields like a man as she was growing up. Her father had even hired his kids out to work for other people in addition to working on his own places. She was tough as nails and in body and in spirit, and mostly kept to herself until it was time to play at sports. We used to call her Bootin'. When it came to softball, kickball, or just about any kind of ball, I would always yell, "I want to be on Bootin's team." That was partly because I liked Bootin' and partly because I liked winning. Whichever team had Judy on it was pretty much assured of doing that. She could kick a softball a mile, or she could knock a softball a mile, sink a basket from anywhere on the court, and run like the wind. She would always pick me for her team, and that made me feel good because most of the other girls wouldn't. Judy played hard enough for both of us. I was not that athletic or physical. I wanted to think, dream, create, sing, write. Judy was fascinated by that part of me. I did the thinking and the planning, and she played it out. We made a great pair. She always thought I was so funny. She got a big kick out of the jokes I would make up to cover my clumsiness and my feeling of inadequacy. Judy and I were in the high school band together. I had no desire to march at football games, but at least it had something to do with music, so I gave it my all. I never learned to play a marching band instrument or read music, but I knew how to keep a beat. It was a little impractical to carry around an old Ford dashboard, so they gave me a snare drum. I used to always have a big ugly bruise on my leg from lugging that drum around. The best part of band was that the director seemed to realize that I heard a different calling. Instead of trying to teach me band music, he would let Judy and me sit in the band room for hours, picking out songs on the piano. I would hunt and plunk my way through a song and make up words to it as I went along. Judy would write it down. Even today, many of my songs get written that way. More often than not, the first person to put pen to paper to write down one of my songs has been Judy Ogle. She is my best friend, and the two of us have been as close as any two sisters could ever hope to be. That accounts for the confusion outsiders sometimes have when they hear me call Judy sis or sissy, which I do most of the time. School was always a strange experience for me, but one Monday, I arrived to find it stranger than ever. The minute I entered the hallway, I could see and feel a change come over the other kids. People were pointing at me with their eyes from a distance and whispering to one another. It wasn't unusual for rumors to circulate about me, but suddenly I was a total outcast. This went on for several days until finally I was almost in tears. I asked one of my few girlfriends, Janice Patterson, what was going on. She said, "You mean you don't know?" "Know what?" I asked. "Then it's not so," she asked, looking very puzzled and disturbed. I convinced her I had no idea what she was talking about, and she finally told me. The story was out all over school that I had been raped by a group of men If there's any children present, you might want to close your ears for just a second. I'm sorry, I didn't censor this chapter. Oh, God. It's almost over. Okay. I had been raped by a group of men over behind A.J. King's lumberyard. My mouth fell open. I was absolutely devastated. I couldn't say another word to Janice, though I have always been grateful to her for her honesty. I walked away from school without looking back. I didn't wait for the bus. I walked all the way home. As I walked, I thought about the story and how twisted the minds of those who created it have been. If it had been true, wouldn't I have been an innocent victim rather than to be shunned and looked down upon? And what about those fictitious men that had been so wrongfully accused? In a strange way, I was almost as outraged for them as I was for myself. By the time I got home, my outrage had turned just to plain hurt, and my tears flowed freely as I told Mama what happened. I told her I was never going back to school. Mama and Daddy had never forced any of us to go to school. There was plenty to be done at home, helping to raise the younger kids and doing chores, but Mama knew this was about more than school. She had a way of speaking and holding her head up that said, "You know, I'm right." She always was. She said, "All right, you can quit if you want to and let everybody think the story is true." Her head got a little higher and her lips took yet another degree of righteous firmness as she continued. "Or you can march right back in there with your head held high, knowing the truth in your own heart, and show them you're better than they are." That is exactly what I did. School was not something I would have fought for under ordinary circumstances. But by God, no vicious, lying cowards were going to deprive me of it. Mama was right. It wasn't about school at all. It was about self-respect. I feel like I have to slam the table at that point. It just felt like it. That was not the only story that was told about me in school. But somehow, after they lost their power to hurt me, there was a real good-looking guy named Curly Dan Bailey, who worked with me on the Cass Walker show. Even though I was only 14 at the time, the rumor spread that I had gotten pregnant by Curly Dan, and that Rachel was actually my illegitimate child by him. Rachel does have a curly mop of hair, but then so does our daddy. I think the lie made Mama madder than anybody. Rachel had to be taken by cesarean and was the last child she would be able to have. There are those who still think Rachel is my child. Sometimes I think even Rachel thinks that. Of course, it's not above me to have a little fun with that. Even today, when Rachel's hair fuzzes up from the rain or humidity, I will sometimes call her Curly Dan. The fact that I was able to laugh off stories like that felt good to me. I had really learned Mama's lesson about self-respect. Self-respect was difficult enough to maintain at home, especially for a young girl trying to become a woman in a house half full of men and boys. People have often asked how we girls managed any privacy in the house with so many boys and no private rooms. It was difficult. We used to bathe with a washcloth from a pan of water. We would first start with our necks and faces and wash down as far as possible. Then we would wash the road dust from our feet and wash up as far as possible. Later, when the boys were out in the room, we would wash those possible areas. It was these circumstances that led to a very embarrassing mishap that I have told very few people and would not rather hear if it were not so funny. I think this is the last story. Yeah, this is the last little page of Chapter 8 from the book Dolly, My Life and Other Unfinished Business. I see you all are chatting to each other. Nice, a little community book reading. Keep it up. Okay. It was these circumstances that led to a very embarrassing mishap that I have told very few people and would not relate here if it were not so funny. We had an outdoor bathroom, and there were times in the middle of the night when it was very inconvenient to dress and go into the cold just to take a leak. For these times, there was a little room, actually a closet, that had in it what was called a slop jar or a slop bucket. It was actually an enameled pot with a flared side, and that was made to accommodate a woman squatting over it to do her business. The closet had no door as such, just sort of curtain hanging on a tight piece of wire. After dark, when the fire had died down, it could afford some kind of privacy at least. One night when I was about 16 or 17, I had been out on a date and got home fairly late. Everybody was already in bed, and I didn't want to wake them and alert Mama and Daddy to the hour of my homecoming. I was absolutely busting to pee, so I fumbled my way through the dark until I found a curtain in the closet and stepped inside. I dropped my panties and hiked up my skirt and assumed the position over the slop jar. I was feeling relieved in a physical sense and quite grown up and somewhat smug that I pulled it off, so to speak. But suddenly, here in the middle of my little triumph, or more accurately, here in the middle of my rump, came the cold nose of an unexpected intruder. A raccoon had gotten into the house, and unbeknownst to me, we were sharing the closet as well as a very intimate moment. When I felt that cold nose up my butt, I screamed bloody murder and I literally peed all over myself. Of course, I woke the whole house with my unscheduled concert. Daddy grabbed the poker to fend off an intruder. Mama started praying. The kids, they started crying, and the big kids just ran around confused. When everybody found out what had happened, they all had a good laugh at my expense, except, of course, the raccoon. Once the lights were turned on, he acted like a man caught in a compromising position with a lady and bolted for the door. I have to think of this moment at times when I'm feeling too big for my britches, and it tends to have a humbling effect. Okay, folks, that concludes Chapter 8 from today's reading of Dolly, My Life and Other Unfinished Business. I always feel bad that you can't see the title without it being fun. So, this is what we've been reading. For those of you that joined us today, we are going to read Chapter 9 on Tuesday, because today is Sunday, I think. Yes. We do this every other day, 10 a.m. Hawaii time, p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. East Coast time, and all the rest of the time zones you got to figure out on your own. Yeah, happy Easter. Hope everyone had a wonderful day. It was great trying to keep up with everybody on the screen. I apologize if I stumbled too much. But yeah, we do this on our own. And I don't think there were any other pictures that I could show you from her reading today. Yeah, no, these were all, we went through all the pictures. Again, it's been a pleasure reading with y'all, and I'll see y'all next time. Oh, and the video will be live for the next 24 hours if you want to go back and watch it, or have anybody else watch it, or listen to it. See ya!